First up, I think we'd like to thank UCLA for setting this up. They do such great panels. I want to hang out with every presenter every time for 20 minutes after they're finished. And this panel is no different. We have a fantastic group with us here today. Down on the end, we have Gwen Riley. Then we've got Kristen Rubi and Fabiola Torres. And what we're going to do to start off with is actually take a cue from our last presenter. I would like you to each introduce yourselves and tell me what business you're really in. This idea that we are marketers, that we are selling a brand, that we are selling products, that we are selling a service, but we're also, inexorably tied to technology and entertainment. So let's talk about who we are and sort of how we interact with this space. What business are we really in? If we'd like to start down there with Gwen.
Sure. Hi, Gwen Riley. I am the SVP of music as well as content partnerships for Peloton. Peloton is actually an interesting hybrid because we started our own category of connected fitness. What does that mean? It means that we are a hardware company, we're a software company, we're a technology company, and we're a content company, right? And sort of around all of that is this wrapper of a brand once you get into the zeitgeist. And so what I have the privilege of doing every day is figuring out how we can bring and interact with talent and third-party IP and different types of other partners to come in and really figure out ways to evolve our content as we're looking at that as a strategy across all of those verticals, really. So fun challenge and interested in having a conversation about that. So.
Fantastic.
I'm Kristen Rubi. I am Director of Client Services for Ben Labs, which is an agency that does product placement. I lead the team that does product placement for General Motors. So one version is that I put cars on TV. But another version is that I'm a translator. I sit right at the intersection between the entertainment industry and the automotive industry and need to understand each side so that my client can have access to excellent entertainment, and that's so that they can also support storytellers in doing what they're doing.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Fabiola Torres. I lead the energy drinks portfolio at PepsiCo. We bring smiles and joy to your day every day from snacks and beverages. And I think our real business is we create demand with the consumers, and we're in the business of creating pull and loyalty to the consumers, I would say.
Great answers. One of the things for those of you that are longtime Pulse aficionados, we've been talking for years about what it means to be a brand creating content, what it means to create content as a company, as a corporation, rather than as an individual or an actor or writer or creative. And I think that question is still incredibly relevant, but I'd like to hear from you guys who have all been working in the space for some time. What does it mean today, to the extent that we're talking about sort of the pulse, right? What does it mean right now to be a brand that is also a content creator? And we'll go that way, and then we can sort of do individual shots. So, Fabi?
I think we have heard so many times about content creation and agility in media and how we come across. It's just, I think it starts with the pure idea of storytelling. And I think as the world has evolved so much, it's about being real, being agile, being organic, and not a lot of brands can develop that. I think it's how you get the pulse from consumers, and really the brief should come from the consumers now versus in the past, and really sophisticated briefs. And I love that we all have that challenge, whether you manage small brands or bigger brands. I think we all face that challenge in the marketplace and make sure that we get to be in their fit. I think the KPIs for my team is about, hey, how can we be in the consumer's feed? How do we make sure that when they scroll us, they don't skip us? There's a different KPIs than in the past when we all created advertising and beautiful commercials when I was at Nike, when I was at Apple. It's just, it has evolved so much, but at the same time, the end mind continues to be the same, to really engage with the consumers.
I have multiple follow-up questions, but now I want to get, and this is going to be sort of the way of things, but we're going to get through. And
So yeah, I would say, we heard how these two ladies beautifully spoke about their brands, and I think what's really important for brands is to know themselves and to know who they are and what they mean in culture. It's such an important part because then they know how to speak, to their end customers. So whether it is through content that they're generating themselves, whether they're talking through a third party, I think that authenticity you were talking about is so important because the consumer really wants that and respects it and expects it from brands as well.
Yeah, and I think content creation right now means that there's a content creator who has now become very visible for the audience, and the audience sees that. So at our company, we have 57 content creators who are effectively influencers, right? They're the face of the company, they're the face of the brand. These are our workout instructors, and each one of them has a channel. So I look at it as if we have 57 radio channels, right, across the platform with 57 ways to tap into different audiences, bring different audiences in, and be able to tell stories and be able to develop their own brands, sort of within that ecosystem that is very attractive and sticky for an audience that's coming in to do primarily, yes, let's say a 30-minute workout, but we're also trying to engage them and keep them there and do something different and elevated with all of that. So that may be a way to tell stories, a way to bring other components into that initial experience that heightens that experience, makes it motivational, makes it sticky, and keeps them coming back for more. So I think it is a unique opportunity as a brand, right, evolving from a workout platform to have content creation built into the actual ecosystem of the company itself, and then build from there, right? And your audience stays there because they're tapped in. So it's something that we can leverage and use to our advantage, and has become an important component, I think, of the Peloton brand.
But I think you're fortunate at Peloton in that you have, and we've talked about it a bit earlier, thinking about how your audience is already, they're already riding. They already have sort of their instructors. They already have the people that they're fans of. They're behind a paywall, and that creates a different set of KPIs for you. And one of the things Fabi talked about in hers is thinking about how do we get them not to skip. So you, I think, have already gotten them to do sort of the harder part, but how do you get discovery? How do you get them to, and then we'll move and talk about how do you get them not to skip? Because I think, and tactically, we've got a lot of students in the room. How many students are? It's a lot. So I think that sometimes it's, we talk a lot about sort of big ideas and concepts about story and authenticity and what it means to create and how we infuse a piece of content with our brand's narrative or with our brand's message. But I think some of the things that are useful, or at least when I was a student, one of the things that was used, like, what stuff are you doing? What tech are you using? What are you deploying to make sure that they stay engaged? What tools, what initiatives have you undertaken to hit those KPIs to make sure that they're engaging with your brand?
Well, I think we first, just on the tech side, I mean, you have to have we have a platform, right? And we have a diverse library of 35,000 pieces of content, class content that you need to be able to sort through and find to personalize your experience when you come on the platform. So using a variety of personalization tools, search tools, making sure that when people come into the platform, because they don't have a lot of time, they can quickly find the content that they're looking for and get into an experience that they like. I think secondly, to your point, authenticity, that's something that's very important to us, particularly because everybody is behind a paywall. This is a subscription platform. I'm paying $44 a month so that you are not selling me Coca-Cola unless I want it over here, right? So it's sort of figuring out where are the places that we can introduce different types of discovery opportunities or a different type of talent that you might not know you're looking for, but now you're delighted to discover because you're already sort of going down that path. Maybe you like to take pop rides, and now you're going to be interested in a Taylor Swift ride because you're sort of already there and the instructors that already program her, in their playlists, as an example. example. But you don't want to conflate that with giving everybody that, because not everybody wants to work out to Taylor Swift. Sorry, Taylor Swift, but it's just making sure that you are leveraging your platform in a diverse way, so that there are multiple offerings and we understand the different cohorts, and we're making sure that we're staying flexible in that way. And I think it's also what Fabi was talking about, is staying flexible as a brand, understanding where your audience portals are, and then being able to build when you know that you have purchase in some of those areas. So another thing with technology too is that recently we just started doing something that we're calling roll-ins. This isn't new technology, but the idea that I could take a Travis Barker experience live in his studio in LA, and we could actually stream that during a class experience that's happening live in the studio in New York, which brings our audience into Travis Barker live cutaways to his studio, so that you're having a moment live in the studio and you're with him, and now we're cutting back to the instructor in New York, and they're giving you that. And so are there ways to bring third-party opportunities that are off-platform into our platform in a way that our entire audience and community can enjoy them in a way that they haven't before, right? So technology is enabling that and opening up the door. And you can see those types of opportunities making sense in things like scenic content, right? Like, is there a way to take sort of a scenic ride through Iceland and start to gamify that? How do we use gamification to, and it might be built on an Unreal Engine, to start to make that environment change and evolve and give you an experience that now feels a bit more three-dimensional? How do we add Foley, sound effects, wind, ocean, things so that you can take, movie-making technology and drop people into something that now feels like an experience as opposed to something that's right here, right? So we're always thinking about how do we get them a little closer into that experience, engaged in that experience, but also have them finish their workout and say, wow, that was a great workout. Because number one, don't forget with your audience, you need to give them what they came in there to get. It's nice to think about, we could entertain them, we could do a talk show, we could do this, we could do that. If I want to watch a talk show, I'm going to watch it on TV, right? But if I can watch a talk show that's interesting to me and ride my bike for 30 minutes, now two birds with one stone, and that's great, but I needed my workout first. So keep Pelotonizing fitness is a way that I talk about making sure that we're keeping that top of mind, keeping our audience and why they're with us top of mind, and then building from there.
Cool. Kristen, cars have been a part of television and movies since television and movies. Tell us what it means now in 2024 to bring your brand, to bring the look and the feel of a General Motors car to. And how do you get them not to skip? How do you get more engagement? How do you drive additional?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And cars are an important part of culture. It's part of the reason I love working on cars. It's an industry I really love, in addition to the entertainment industry. And what's great about a car, and I work in across film and television. My agency also works across influencer, music video, custom content. So we're trying to reach consumers wherever they are, but my focus is largely film and television, is that a car is a very powerful thing in a story. And storytellers know that, content creators know that. So if a character comes on screen and has a certain car, if they drive a truck, if they drive an electric vehicle, the storyteller knows that they're conveying something about that character, even without any dialogue. So storytellers really do, use cars in that way. They're very carefully chosen for characters. And as far as not being, skipping, it's exactly being on screen in that way, not being the interruption, being in the entertainment is really what's key. And finding those consumers when they're in moments where they're engaged, where they're not distracted, where they're not, trying to skip over an ad is what's really key.
You've gotten to see all kinds of different integrations between art and entertainment and sports and commerce in your work at Apple and in your work at Pepsi, and now with the energy drink sort of banner. How are you integrating technology? How is it different today? How are you getting them not to skip now in 2024?
I think it's personalization at scale. You know, at the end of the day, what Gwen was saying is so true, but we can still sell them Gatorade. Is that I think is the what I said at the beginning, I really mean it, is just the original brief has not changed. What it has changed is the tools that we have at our fingertips, is how we use them. We're heavy users of AI, but we're really making sure that the deep storytelling doesn't get lost, and it's not about a transaction. Because in the world of CPG, you can imagine that it's so dynamic. The marketplace and the competition is so dynamic. You're as good as your business is today. Versus when I was at Nike, is brand building and innovation first and product superiority. Here, and at Apple as well, but here is, yes, product superiority, but it's a volume. So you really execute the full funnel in terms of how you actually create brand awareness, but the conversion and consideration part of the funnel is so important. So we use a lot of technology tools, from the Google tools to do higher CTR and different things like that. But at the same time, we want to know and we want to meet what the consumers are, and we need to know where they live in culture, what the brands that are relevant for them. At Nike, we used to say, hey, we want to be part of their closet. At Apple, we want to be part of their pockets. Mm-hmm. Here, we say we want to be part of their journey, or their on the go, or their pantries. So the thinking continues to be the same, how you continue to be essential for the consumer. So it's a little bit of the science and art. As in the past, a long time ago, and I'm dating myself, it was more the art than the science. And right now you have to balance I do execute as a marketer that you do the brand storytelling, but you do performance marketing at once to make sure that everything is just well orchestrated in the kind of the consumer calendar or consumer day.
Let's talk about that for a little bit, because one of the things that I think is interesting is this idea of personalization, but at scale, yeah. Right? And we have more tools now to access the customer, to access the user. Although, sort of in a post-cookies environment, starting to think about what it means to get, consented first-party data is different than when you used to be able to go buy the data. And what does it mean? How do you think about getting customer data so that you can go and personalize your content for those customers? How are you thinking about accessing the demographic profiles and the psychographic profiles? How are you thinking about, and what tools are you using to know them, to know who is your customer?
We're very respectful of the first party data. We are consumers as well. The marketers and our teams are consumers. So we want to make sure that we don't bombard them too much. It has to be a certain level of purchase before to really start getting the message. And we really tailor for the type of products that they really like. And as you said, cookies after cookies, and how they can opt out of our own brand and the content. The good thing is we live in the entertainment world as well. We do gaming, we do music, we do a lot of things that they choose to be with us, and whoever is leaving us in terms of not opting in anymore, we're very respectful on continuing kind of always recruiting and inviting consumers through appealing content. I think is, I don't want to get into a lot of the tools, but it's more about the content and how you communicate with them, and be respectful when they leave you. There's always ways to bring them back.
Well, this is related, right? How are you, to the extent that a car is telling us, and it doesn't have to be cars. I know that Ben does a lot of work, but your work specifically, when the person rolls onto the screen in car X or car Y, I have a Honda CRV because I have two little girls, and we drive to soccer practice and track and that sort of thing.
I won't hold that against you.
And that says something about me, right? Like, how do you reach the audience? How do you identify who your audience is? Because it's not just you saying, it's a little bit of push and a little bit of pull, right? It's, we want this to be the image of the car, but we want you to see yourself in this car. How do you think about that relationship?
Yeah, it is a mix of art and science, and Ben Labs is a very tech-forward, AI-forward company, and we use proprietary AI, really a lot around audience clustering and understanding audience and where they're consuming content. But there is an art to it as well. There is, we have an enormous team with vast entertainment experience that are looking at projects that are in development across the industry, that are reading scripts, that are identifying moments, identifying characters. And the great thing about working for a client like General Motors is they have an enormous portfolio. They have 4 brands: Chevy, Buick, GMC, Cadillac.
There you go. Got to get rep.
Each of those brands has, many vehicles, and, they make vehicles for everybody, from very economical small vehicles up to, Cadillac Escalade, which is north of $100,000. There's a consumer for each of those vehicles, and there are characters that are appropriate for each of those vehicles. So it's a lot of, evaluating scripts and looking at stories and finding where those things fit together. And then, providing the vehicle for the production, assuming that they also agree that creatively it works, because you have to have obviously buy-in from the storyteller as well. But just making that connection.
And how are you making that connection? Because you're looking at adding, while it is a fitness brand, while it is a fitness company, while it is a fitness product, how do you think about creating a collaboration with Cardi B so that you can have a Cardi B workout that reaches the right people? How are you thinking about reaching your audience? How do you identify them? How do you get them to come to you?
I mean, I think we look across a number of different interest groups that we see overlapping with Cardi B in this example's audience, right? I mean, that's the nice thing about partnering with somebody who also has a lot of brand affiliation, right? So that would be the first thing. And then saying, okay, where do those folks interact? Do we invite some of these people into the studio to take the live class, live with us when we do that? And think about, they're in Facebook groups, they have word of mouth, and let that word of mouth sort of organically spin. Are we able to kind of see some patterns of people that follow certain instructors that tend to program Cardi B? Is there a way that we can reach out to them to make sure that we're letting them know on social that this series of classes are coming? And when I'm thinking about how do you bring a Cardi B onto the platform, every week we have something called an artist series. And so that allows us to kind of focus on either a frontline or a deep catalog artist that's had, sometimes many generations of hits, that gives the instructors an opportunity to kind of take a deeper dive into that music and bring an experience that is very Cardi B branded and focused into that workout. So titling a class, the Cardi B Run, the Cardi B Ride, the Cardi B Strength class. Okay, so hello, now I know I love Cardi B, and my strength class this week is going to be all Cardi B. Great, I'm in. And then you can see a future just using different types that's a programming strategy, right? Versus kind of acquisition, which is, you could see a future where one of the tools that we do have now on the platform is a little thumbnail that allows you to like a track when you hear it in the playlist while you're working out. So now I've liked Cardi B. If I've provisioned and hooked up my Apple Music or my Spotify account, that is automatically going over, and it's now sitting in a playlist on Spotify that is branded with Peloton. So I can track my music, I can listen to it in the car, I can take it with me when I go. It's all over there. You could see a world where if we wanted to do a deal with Spotify, let's say, and get deeper into shared APIs, you could start to map and say, hey, give me a cross-section of all the people that have put Cardi B on the playlist. Maybe we can give them a taste of Peloton. Or people that are just listening to Cardi B, they aren't Peloton yet. Maybe we can somehow talk to them through your platform and bring them in and say, hey, you like Cardi B, you might be interested in trying this Cardi B class on Peloton. What else do you like to do? Hey, you like to work out? Here, come with us. Take a free trial for 30 days. So we have some mechanisms like free trial and mechanisms like that allow people to come in and sort of have a taste of Peloton. But you could see how you could work with her audience as well as combining ours, and looking at patterns of behavior on our platform could work together to be able to make sure that you are targeting some of those people and bringing them in a little more closely.
Very helpful. You've each talked about data and KPIs and things that you're looking at being a data-driven company, and that's evolved obviously over the last sort of 20 years in marketing to make it more. Talk about the composition of science and art and what percentage. When you go to work in the morning, or whenever it is that you go to work, I'm not going to be one of these people that requires you to go to work in the morning or even in an office anymore, but the idea of what data do you look at that you say, oh, that I know I'm doing a good job when that number goes up or when that number changes? And just keeping it to 1 or 2, just because I think this is related to this idea of tools and related to this idea that I think students will resonate with. What do I look at and say, that's how I know I'm doing a good job?
I'll give you 2.
Awesome.
One is pretty boring, the other is nice. But in the world that I live, I have to do both. First, just to our social media feed, and not our post necessarily, is the comments that the consumers make about our post. It's really important because you get a pulse of, are they really believing? Are they talking about it in the way that we want it to? That's the best consumer insights that we get. PepsiCo, we have so many data points to measure success that you just don't have enough life to really go through it. Really, it's just they're at the fingertips. You can read your business from today. You can read the data from the behavior of your own data on media, your ROI daily, like things like that. So I choose to go to our social channels. I go immediately to the competition channels to see what is the chatter, like what are they talking about, if they're talking about something from a consumer lens. And my second one is, that was 1 and 2. And my second one is the business. So I need to see the numbers. I really need to see, as we have these IRI data and how the business performs and everything, I just get up and go to the business. I get to these business tools, and you get it on an app, or you get it on the email, or you get it through a website. And I use that with my team to storytell. The consumer is telling us something. When you have, in the CPG is very different than the other industries. Just as I said it before, you're as good as your business is today. So is the consumer telling us why they want zero sugar, why they want these flavors versus the other flavors? They're going to certain retailers versus the other retailers. So I don't have to talk to my team about daily on that, but for me, it's a good fit and a good sense of how the business is doing, especially when we launch innovation.
Little different answer for me because it's a little more brass tacks. First of all, I'm lucky enough to split my time between our headquarters and office and our warehouse where we keep all of our cars. So I go back and forth between wearing business casual and wearing hoodies, which is fantastic. But again, brass tacks because product placement for us is very much a volume business, and what a lot of people don't realize about it is that. Quite a lot of it is not paid. There's no money changing hands. So we are very frequently providing vehicles for productions that have a need, and we send it out to them. So when I come in, I am looking at how many cars we have going out on a certain day or a week. And because when we send those cars out for trade out, is what we call them, or below the line, there's no obligation by the production to put them on screen. We provide them with the hopes that they will, and expectation. How many cases they did actually show up and how, and then also as we're looking at where the vehicle showed up, the number of impressions, the number of people that we reached. So very, very tactical.
Great.
I guess I'm sort of my morning's sort of similar to yours, and using the Cardi B example again, I'm going to be looking at engagement just across all of our classes, and then measuring potentially if these classes have dropped, like what the level of engagement was, let's say, between the Cardi B classes and a regular 30-minute hip hop class that ran at the same time the week before, right? So just understanding kind of performance metrics of what's going on. I'm looking at music consumption across our entire platform and seeing if anything kind of spiked or declined as a result of something that was more promotional that we did. If Cardi happens to post for us and we've got her in a position where she wants to do a reciprocal post or she's doing some sort of promotion, what are the comments there? or when we drop or we tease that, this event is going to be coming up, what are the comments telling us? How are the consumers behaving? Are they excited? Did they opt in for the class? And so it's sort of taking whatever we're doing from a marketing standpoint outside, off platform, and then mapping that with behavior that we see and that we're trending across the platform is always kind of the intersection that I'm kind of going back and forth between.
The two of you picked sort of customer response, right? The speed with which and frankly, the volume that they can produce when they're talking about our products is it's different now than it ever has been. It's faster, it's louder, it's more. How do you feel, sort of in general? Are we excited about how quickly we can respond to our audiences, or are we terrified in a lot of ways? And maybe the answer is a little of both, right? Because we've all seen, and we talk about being canceled, or we talk about like we have to toe this line. We as marketers, we as people who sell products to people, we have to be responsive to the audience. We have to be excited about the audience. We have to listen to the audience. And at the same time, we're a tiny bit afraid of the audience, right? How do we think about that? How do each of you sort of respond to that in relatively short order? Because I've got one more question after this one, and then we can keep it real short.
Very quick, because it was interesting. After coming from tech, and they hired me during COVID, my boss asked me, hey, when we start with this brand, we need to make sure that we reformulate one of the products, because they will have received a lot of feedback from the consumers and the customers that needs to be more modern, and the taste profile needs to. So we jump into this task force. Long story short, we made it super quick, and I was so proud because I was new, and I put this task team and we did it. Oh my God, I had to have security in my door because the consumers really like hated it, and they found out my address. So they started writing these letters to my house and emails through LinkedIn that they were gonna actually do something
because of the flavor of a drink?
Because of the flavor of a drink. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I never thought that was going to go through it. I got security from PepsiCo calling me, and I was like, what is happening? I think it's, being so new to the industry, and I never thought I was going to be in this situation. And what we did is like really kind of reverse engineer and say, like, let's listen to what they had to say. We never thought it was going to be such a very loyal community on one profile of a product. And I was like, okay, let's change it back, and let's do things that you have to do it right for the consumer. And we end up changing back just for the West Coast that product. So that's a little bit of the experience. It has never happened before. That was 3 years ago, but it feels like yesterday.
I bet it does.
And it's just, it's a little bit of that. It's a little scary because of the volume that you manage. And then at the end of the day, you still have to take some risk and take the consumer to a new place with all the risks and implications that this brings.
I'd say for me, nothing that dramatic, thank goodness. But what my team has to remember is, because we're at an agency, is that we're working on behalf of a client, and we are tasked with helping that client, helping them navigate the entertainment space, but also protecting them. So it is something we take really seriously, and are very careful and very dedicated with what we do for that reason, because what you just described, we don't want to happen to our client. We really want to serve them well and have them show up in the industry, in a respectable way.
Great answer.
Yeah, and they're to your point, they're coming at you very quickly. They're coming in through social media. You're in an immediate real time, which I think makes it a very dynamic time to be working with your audience and with your community, and being able to respond quickly, I think, is part of your brand value to them. Hey, we're letting you know we didn't like something. We saw that you reacted to that, or you said something that recognized that you heard us. That feels authentic to us. We want to kind of continue to invest in the brand. So I think in terms of the moving forward, it's a blessing and a curse because it can, but you find out if very quickly people don't like something and you can pivot. So being ready and having the tools and having the committees and having standards and practices and ways to react to things that the consumer lets you know they might not like, as well as the things that they like and want more of, is the way that you kind of stay ahead. So it's, it's a challenge, but it's an exciting time. And I like that it's immediate now. That's dynamic. It lets you operate quickly.
So last one, which technology? We've heard AR, we've heard VR, we talked about coins at one point in one of those sessions, and we've talked a lot about AI. What's the technology that's going to change our jobs in the next 5 years? What's the one thing that's going to change it all?
AI.
Sora.
Sora. So not just AI, specifically Sora.
Yeah, probably same.
Wow, 3-0 for AI. And that's all we've got. We
In a
really
good way.
appreciate you guys taking the time. Thank you very much.